All right, let's move on. Since we touched on law enforcement a little bit, let's talk about policing, right? After all those record protests we had two summers ago, we then had the city council and the mayor basically increase spending in the city on policing. We haven't seen anything done on issues like law enforcement's Bill of Rights. We haven't seen anything done to like give para more power, right?
Exactly, yeah.
We haven't seen anything really to restrain police in Rhode Island, and yet on the state and municipal level, we've seen vast increases.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on policing?
Sure. I think that any government organization thrives with three major components of engagement, transparency, and accountability. So far, police, we haven't seen the level of accountability that we're looking for, honestly, you know? And I think that, I think the same thing about teachers' unions. I think accountability is good, you know, across the board. That's unarguable. I think that it's inappropriate for example, after school gets out in this neighborhood, a police officer will sit in the parking lot at the church down the street and wait for students to walk by and target them. I sat in on a board meeting last year with the Mount Hope Neighborhood Association, and that came up as a problem, and that's an issue. We need to be talking about that, you know? There's a lot of advocacy that needs to be done around it, and I think that anyway, para, you know, I've been reading the climate agreement, the Providence, what's it called? the climate, 2019, right? The climate agreement, and they talk about collaborative governance,
right?
And I think that principle can be applied in so many ways, and we're already seeing some vestiges of this idea. Collaborative governance, for those who are unaware, being empowering the community to make decisions regarding their own future, their own destination. Right. So in the school system, we see the elected school board empowered. Excellent. Para would be another example of taking the community and putting them in charge of their government, right?
Their own policing. In a sense.
Right, exactly. They are in charge of the system, and so to have para, we saw what happened with Representative Batista.
Yeah, I know.
Terrible. That was an example of the community trying to use the power that they should have been afforded, and see how he was treated.
There have been some moves I've seen that very subtly on the part of the Attorney General to undermine para by basically saying anytime there's use of force, the Attorney General will automatically take point on it, which automatically takes it out of the realm of the city and puts it into the state's hands, where para doesn't really have the authority to say to the Attorney General, turn over these documents, do this, right? So there have been little things like that, which, you know, the use of force policy is an interesting policy, and it's nice in the sense that it's maybe provides some oversight on policing on the part of the state under the Attorney General, but it does not do anything for local departments, and in fact, more often than not, has been shielding local departments, as I've seen it. You know? So,
and those boards where a police officer they get to pick who's on there. That's part of
Leo Board, the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights,
right, which is ridiculous.
The idea would be that the chief picks one, the defendant picks one, and these are like basically your jury, and the third one is randomly assigned, but the random assignment goes towards the police or towards the officer, like back and forth.
Right.
And that's the three-person board. All law enforcement or former law enforcement, nobody on that board will not have law enforcement ties. And so, you know, it's really, you know, we ask who watches the Watchmen. I mean, that's
that's
part of it. Yeah.
And I think the new director of para is former law enforcement, correct me if I'm wrong? So what the heck is with that, you know? We have to have better systems for this.
I'm not sure how he works as a civilian oversight board, right?
Yeah, it's a and it's a lot. Like, you can
I
choose
guess
any other career,
you know? Now, but you know, still, it's kind of it was
unusual choice.
Well, I think it was a usual choice.
Well,
and I think the fact is, under para since it was instituted under the CSA, Community Safety Act, it hasn't really had any teeth or any victories or any real work at all. In fact, Jose Batista brought it closest we've had to actual real
accountability.
And even that backfired because we can't keep loading people into that position and having them fired over and over.
We can't just keep turning them out. We have a long list of alumni.
And what about like the converse of that, which is crime, right? So there's still crime to consider. People,
Yes.
Generally when I speak to people on, normal everyday people in their house, coming out in houses, watching a protest go by or whatever, they tell me they're not so much into defunding the police as having police work for them the same way it works for a white East Sider like myself.
Yeah.
Right? I live on the East Side up the street, and if I were to call the cops, they would come and say, what do you need, Mr. Alquist?
Right, yeah, right, yeah, absolutely.
It wouldn't be a question, right? So how about, that response too? What do we do on that side of it?
Yeah, absolutely, because crime does exist. We can't forget that happens too, right? I was, a couple of years ago, I was coming home and I saw my neighbor climbing into their own window, because I guess they had gotten locked out, but I didn't know it was my neighbor, so I called the police, and they were there in a flash, and they, 8 cop cars, like the whole street was filled up, and they went and talked to me, they talked to the neighbor, everything was good, they took care of us, and but yeah, you hear from like Councilor Carmen Castillo that we can't just get rid of the police. They are very important, especially where it happens more frequently in the city.
Sure.
So the answer is the police don't need to disappear. They need to be more accountable and engaged and transparent, and that's what we really need.